I'm Trudy Kerr, and welcome to The Interviewer. In this series, I talk to artists, campaigners, men and women of influence, musicians, performers, sportsmen and women, politicians, businessmen and women, and anyone who shapes the fabric of our society. Welcome to Mpowered, by women for women. This podcast brings you inspirational women and their stories, their successes, and their experiences along the way. Join us to be challenged and inspired. Brought to you by Vintage and hosted by myself, Trudy Kerr. Today's guest simply has the most remarkable story. In her own words, towards the end of 2019, I decided to buy some plants to decorate my home with, as it was looking really bare. I brought home 6 plants and thought I'd better look up how to keep these guys or I'll have wasted my money. And so, Shelley Caruana started researching plants and turned what would normally be a normal household chore into a passion, into a social media success story with over 165,000 followers, into a business venture with Shelley's Indoor Jungle website. This extraordinary story is just part of Shelley's journey, and we're going to be looking at plants and personalities over the course of the next half an hour. Shelley, thank you so much for being on the show on Mpowered with me.
Thank you so much for that sweet introduction, Trudy. I'm really, really honored to be here.
It's really cool to have you. I was honestly lost to know where to start, as your story really does raise so many questions. But let's start at the beginning. Did you really just go and buy 6 plants?
I promise, it was just 6 plants. I think we didn't even consider getting 6. We were going to get less potentially.
But as your husband and yourself?
Yes. Sean's my husband. We do all the decisions together when it comes to house decor and things like that. He loves to be involved. So basically, the house was just very bare. We barely had any furniture. You know, we had just started off. Everywhere was white because we were being conservative at first with the colors and everything. So it was just like, come on, let's just get a few plants. So we got 6 big plants, and big plants tend to be a bit expensive. So he was like, it's really your responsibility to take care of them, please. It was like 200 euros. He's like, please make sure you take care of them.
What did you buy? What were these plants?
They were just normal plants, like snake plants, you know, they were just really normal plants. But since he put that kind of pressure on me, and he's like, you know, your responsibility, you want them, you need to make sure they're still alive. Obviously money is tight when you just start off. And I one of my traits is when I do something, I will commit fully. I will like go big or go home with me. So I was just researching and I fell into a rabbit hole. There are so many plants and so many different ones and so many that you can collect. So nowadays, when he complains about soil and all these things, I just tell him it was your fault. You know my character.
But Shelley, you say it's your trait and it's like falling down a rabbit hole. But there's a big difference between going and buying 6 plants and finding out about plants and making an entire life out of it. I mean, that's not just a rabbit hole, that's a whole quarry.
And you'd be surprised how many people have the same the same hobby. You'd be surprised. There was I decided to open an Instagram account just so that I keep myself motivated, right? I post a photo today and I see in a few months' time how the plant changed. That was literally the only reason I created the Instagram account. And suddenly you realize there's a whole community of people with the same, they collect plants, they're so obsessed with plants like I am. And it was impressive. And it's such a sweet community of people as well. It's just a very helpful community.
Well, my question to you is, genuinely, you knew nothing about plants before?
Nothing. I promise, nothing. 0. It was really weird, the sudden switch of how I suddenly got into plants. I don't understand how it happened. But I think I don't know. I think once, it can happen with anything really. Once you kind of commit and say, you know, I'm going to really, really focus on this. Could be cooking. It could be, I don't know, whatever, art. It's happened with plants to me.
Well, Yes, but you have to agree with me. There's commitment, and then there's Shelley's Indoor Jungle.
Yes.
Because your first post was on the 1st of December, 2019, and it was a picture of a prayer plant.
Yes. Okay.
And the post got 136 likes. So this is your first post on Instagram on this account. Mm-hmm. So you've already got quite a good response from that. So you must have been like, oh, wow.
Yes, I'm telling you, it's incredible what a community there is.
It only had one hashtag as well. And you reference Miranda. Oh, I've done my research. And you reference Miranda in a post and hashtag Shelley's_Miranda. Fast forwarding today, you're posting about your daily food intake, your different outfits that you're wearing, you in Camino, and of course, along with pictures of the plant. So let's talk about the rise of this social media queen, which you are, how this happens practically, and the emotional journey. First of all, though, I want to find out, who's Miranda?
It's one of my plants. So I named all my plants.
Oh my word!
Yes. I'm telling you, if I commit to something, I commit. So my friends once described it as hyperfixating. And it's true. It's like that with me with a lot of things, which can be both a gift and a curse. Because sometimes when I commit to something a little too hard, I shut off from the world a bit. So yes, there is a rise to social media, but it also, if you don't check yourself,
we're going to explore that in a few minutes. So once we've talked about how you got there, we're going to find out all of the other sides of this topic as well. But let's talk about the practicality of, I didn't realise Miranda was the name of the plant. How does this happen? You have one post, 136 likes. So how do you take 136 likes in the space of 3 years to 167,000 followers? How did that happen?
I think I just figured out a formula that people, there are a lot of plant accounts out there, first of all, loads. So I was thinking, how can I stand out? Like, if I'm just randomly posting photos of my plants, but how can I stand out and how can it be different? And if I'm sharing this journey of my plants growing, how will people remember which ones are my plants versus the other thousands of plants? So I named all my plants. And I gave them hashtags, so people can click on the hashtag and see their journey, like see how they've grown. Every time I post them, like if we click on the hashtag, you see the past photos.
So Miranda has a whole bunch of photos.
I mean, Miranda died now, but...
Shelley, you killed Miranda.
I still kill plants, yes. I still kill plants.
But this is
it's
Miranda.
Normal, it's part of the process.
This is Miranda.
But I remember who she is. Even though I've probably owned over 200 or 300 plants now with the ones that I've killed, I still remember each and every single one of them.
So you think that your success is literally based on you hashtagging and naming each of those plants?
Definitely. People, I've had people, I've actually sent, once I've sent a leaf of one of my plants to America to someone who wanted it framed, because people love, I've had plants that, for example, would get pests, and I would document the journey of me trying to fix it and trying to save it, and people would develop, not feelings, how do you say, they would develop a relationship with that plant. Like, they would want to know how it's been growing and how it's been doing. And people will randomly, sometimes message me, how's Peppu doing? This is a plant that would have died. They would still, they
so
would
what
remember.
do you say when someone asks how Peppu's doing?
I say it died. I say the truth. I'm not perfect. And I think it's normal. It's okay to normalize, There's the whole Instagram reality thing as well, how everyone always posts the good stuff. That was another thing that helped, because I always posted as well. I was real. I posted when I had pests. I posted when I killed plants. I posted when I had issues with plants. I posted when I neglected plants. And I think that makes people relate more somehow.
I think very much so. And you just touched on something about social media, about us being real. And I follow a number of influencers with hundreds of thousands of followers like yourself, who make a point of being real. And this is very refreshing. In your instance, you're just being very real about the fact that sometimes you kill Miranda.
Yes.
R.I.P. Miranda.
I'm so sorry, Miranda.
I'm shocked to hear this. Well, this is an incredible strategy. And coming back to what you were just saying a second ago, because I was going to ask you about your emotional journey, because one thing I did notice is that your frequency of posting and your frequency of communication is extremely high. Now, we're going to talk about in a second about how that impacts on the rest of your life and how you make time for that. But just touching on what you just mentioned there about you get, as a person can become quite fixated. Is that then respectfully part of your success, that you've poured yourself into this relationship with your Instagram account and you've taken it right to a high level and you've seen the results, but at the same time you're fixated? This is part of your nature.
Yes, it's definitely, I think it is part of my success, because for almost 2 years I was posting twice daily, plus a lot of stories and content creation, like finding the right lighting, the right setup, everything. It takes time. I had a diary with like 4 weeks of posts twice a day planned in advance, and it can cause you to burn out. It can, it's tiring when all you're thinking of is one thing. But the high you get from social media, it's so addictive.
Yeah.
And
it's that dopamine kick. It's
yeah.
that seeing that a post has got, well, in my case, a couple of hundred likes. In your case, thousands and thousands.
Yes, it's incredible. There was a time where I used to get over 1,000 followers a day, and it was crazy. It was.
But this is just from the hashtags in the story
and
the frequency of your posting.
Because I would share really informative posts, so people share them. That sort of time lapses, which are really cool. Again, you have to film them for like 2 weeks with the light on.
Yeah.
It's.
But would you say also? I wonder if this had something to do with it, and this is also going to be part of our conversation later on. But would you say that your timing was very fortuitous? You came into this right before COVID.
Yep.
You're doing your learning, you're building your profile right before everybody's locked down.
Yep.
And what are they doing? They're staying inside with plants.
Yep, definitely. That definitely helped as well. Definitely. People were inside. We saw a boom. I think even across the island, there was a huge boom of people buying plants. A few then increase their collection as well. Like, I get quite a few people telling me that thanks to following me, they now understand how to take care of plants. Others just tried and they gave up, which is
and they
fine,
killed Miranda.
Yes, and they killed. But definitely throughout COVID there was definitely a boom. I've noticed that.
Well, you mentioned there about timing and how much time being an influencer, particularly at your level, how much time that takes. And I remember having a guest on the show, talking to her about, as an influencer, talking to her about Karen Duffy, talking about her commitment to her followers. And in respect to Karen, her followers don't come anywhere near yours. In fact, I don't think I've interviewed anybody whose followers come anywhere near yours or who has such a strange relationship with plants. But she said that when she went on holiday to Greece, she had to pre-plan where she was taking photographs and what she was going to be wearing. Now, this to me sounds like a lot of hard work. And my question is on a practical level, and we'll come back to the emotional again. If you have work, if you have a full-time job, if you have a husband, if you have a home, if you have friends and family, how on earth do you manage to fit in this commitment? Is it not just all-consuming?
It was very consuming, and obviously it does create a strain on the relationship. I was lucky with COVID in a sense because we were indoors, so I had the time to do it. But very recently, I felt like I was quite burnt out, and in fact, I had stopped posting for quite a while. Actually, I took a slight break at the beginning. I think earlier on this year. I can't even remember. I decided to take a slight break, take a step back, because I wasn't even enjoying it anymore. And I wouldn't say I was enjoying it during almost as well. It was just the high of all the of social media, really. And sort of finally I took that step. I took a break, and I rediscovered my old hobbies. I'm spending more time with family and friends. And Sean is always saying like oh, so much better now that you're not constantly stuck to your phone. And now I'm just trying to post, like, I don't really plan from before. I just kind of I just try to post what I want to post, and I'm trying to make a bit more of an impact as well. I recognize that I do have quite a large platform. Apart from, my hobby with plants, I have other hobbies, and I consider myself to be a person who, I don't know, I want to be impactful, and I want to make a difference, and I have such a big platform. So it's such a good
it's a
opportunity.
Responsibility as well.
I'm still trying to find my footing as well, and try to understand what I want to do and how I want to share, my story and how I improved in certain things, and be it battling anxiety or other things. So I'm still trying to figure out my footing, and because I think it's a waste to have such a large platform and you're not doing something.
Absolutely. But from a practical point of view, you have recently been posting. You asked, "Does everybody want to know what you eat?" And I saw that you laid out these lovely, beautiful photographs, by the way, but photographs of the food that you ate every day. Does that, bearing in mind your audience, does that sort of post get as much traction as something like you killing Miranda?
No, it doesn't. As well, since I took that break, it messes up the entire algorithm, and this is something that I think is so. It's so bad about social media, because you're going to mess up the algorithm, and people don't want to do that. So even if you're burnt out and you don't want to lose that connection with people, so you might think twice, 3 times, 4 times before taking that break. So even me taking that break, obviously engagement went down. But I made a promise to myself that I am not going to be obsessing over my likes and insights anymore. I hide my likes, So now I just want to. I still get a lot of engagement. I still get people messaging me. I still get comments, and for me, as long as I'm kind of trying to, as long as somehow I'm making a difference and something for the better, I feel like it's a bit more meaningful. And if I'm hitting 3 people instead of 80, it's fine if it's a bit more meaningful.
That's your decision. Now, you did mention, and I am very impressed because you're the very first influencer that I've ever met that has mentioned the impact of that dopamine hit. And it's very real.
It's extremely
real. We do something, we get a success, we get a high.
Extremely.
And it is addictive. And I often wonder how influencers keep going, how they don't burn out, as you said. Did you become aware at one point that you were getting highs from your social media and that you were becoming somehow hooked on this?
I was aware all throughout. And Sean, my husband, he's very involved. He used to tell me, like, you're spending way too much time on your phone constantly. And I used to even do like a child lock on my phone, so that Instagram, like, after, I don't know, for example, after 2 hours it shuts off, and I've used my because it got bad. There were days in the beginning where I used to spend easily like 6 or 7 hours on Instagram. It was crazy, and I knew it was bad, but it's so addictive. It's crazy.
So when did that moment come that you decided, okay, I'm going to step away from Instagram whether it messes up my algorithms or whether it doesn't, I'm just going to step away for a break?
I feel like it happened a bit. It was a bit gradual. Towards the end of last year, I started slowing down a bit. I was like, I think even the fact that COVID restrictions started to ease a little, and I kind of, I don't know, started going out more, rediscovering new hobbies again. It kind of happened gradually, and then finally I was like, I'm not gonna plan any more posts for now. I'm just gonna stop. I don't even know when I stopped. It was just earlier this year, and it was so good for my mental health. It was so good, and now I'm just posting whatever I kind of feel like, and it makes a huge difference.
Can I ask you a very personal question? Because when we spoke, you mentioned that you were affected by the condition of hypochondria.
Yes.
And I am not a hypochondriac. I am exactly the opposite
Very
to
lucky.
a hypochondriac. I went to see my doctor and I said, I've had headaches. He said, how long? I said, well, they've been going on for about a year. So I'm at the other pole. But I do have a family member who is very much affected by hypochondria. And that's not just that they're concerned. Hypochondria is when you are anxious over health issues, a heightened state of anxiety over health issues. Is there some correlation, therefore? Because I was thinking about this before we came. Is there some correlation, therefore, between COVID, which must have been a nightmare for someone with hypochondria, and you throwing yourself into this social media activity so much?
I think that's a really, really good point. So COVID itself wasn't something I was terribly worried about, funnily enough, because I feel like with mental health issues, no matter how much awareness there's going to be, I feel like everyone's journey is very unique and therefore very lonely, because I might have hypochondria, you might have hypochondria, but we don't have the same kind. So I'm more worried about things like cancer, for example. That scares me more. So COVID itself didn't really scare me. I mean, obviously I was worried. Like, I didn't want my parents to get it. I didn't want my grandparents to get it. But COVID itself didn't scare me more than the average person. But definitely, I grew up. I would say I always was a bit susceptible. My mom is also quite very much like me, a hypochondriac. But then sort of towards my late teens, I was constantly, I don't know if it was because I used to watch Grey's Anatomy, for example, and someone would have, I don't know, a symptom, and I'd be like, oh my God, I have that symptom, I have bone marrow cancer. And I would immediately catastrophize. And at one point in my life, I even lost a lot of weight because of it, and I was sure that I'm losing weight because I have cancer, and it was just anxiety, and it was really difficult. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So you said I might be throwing myself at my hobbies because of the hypochondria.
Yeah,
I totally
curious
agree.
to see whether there's any
yes,
correlation.
For sure. I think I found that I definitely tend to throw myself at things because if I'm sitting down not doing anything, I'm thinking bad thoughts. So I fill my days as much as possible. The worst are the nights. I will go to bed. I like to describe anxiety, my anxiety that I have in terms of health like this. It's like I have a box in my brain, a black box with these ugly catastrophic thoughts, and they're always trying to escape. The more I fill my day, the more the box remains shut. The second I go to bed and I let my guard down, the worst is when I'm about to drift off to sleep, because it's like all my guards are down and suddenly, it's really weird. I think the brain is such a remarkable thing. I start getting these thoughts like, you have a brain tumor, you have, I don't know, a heart condition, you have something, whatever, something or other. That part of my brain is awake and I can't, the rational part isn't. It's really weird. And I can't fight it. I can't say, no, I just did a blood test, I'm fine. Or, I just went to the ENT like 3 times, because then that's what happens. You end up going to the doctor often because that's the only thing that calms you down. I actually have a funny story related to this. At that moment, it's not that funny, and if you think about it, it's a bit sad, I think. But recently, I think it was a few months ago, I noticed a mole on my neck, and it was really asymmetrical. I was very worried. I couldn't think. I could, literally, when this happens to me, I wouldn't be able to think. I need to drop everything, and I need to see a doctor. So I immediately sent a photo to my dermatologist, and I was like, I don't know where this mole came from. I've never seen it before. What do I do? Should I come for an urgent appointment? And she's like, listen, I look at the photo, it doesn't look urgent, you don't need, it doesn't look weird, it doesn't look malignant or anything, don't worry. And I told her, but should I make an appointment anyway? And she's like, go to, she was really dismissive. She was like, go to a GP if you want. and then I showered, and then I went to the mirror, and the mole was gone. And I think on the day,
oh my gosh,
I think I had a chocolate milkshake or something, and I think it was on my neck. And it's so funny, but at that point in time, I was losing my head. I was sure I had skin cancer.
Oh my word.
And you can't think rationally. That's the problem I have. You go from 0 to 100, and there's no in between.
It's very interesting that you mention this, because very recently on another podcast, I interviewed Alvin Galia, who was diagnosed with ADHD at 37 years old. Mm-hmm. And it sounds, you're making me think of him when he said, my brain is wired differently. And I think this is so often what we dismiss. We think someone's being paranoid, we think someone's overreacting, but we don't take into account that sometimes people's brains are just wired differently. Yes. And they act differently and they behave differently. And that we can't just dismiss any condition and say, oh, it's because you had childhood trauma or because of this and the other. Sometimes it comes down to the fact that our brains function differently. Now, I will ask you, are you aware of any activities, any family situations or friend situations when you were young that would have influenced you, or is it really down to brain activity?
So normally, because I have researched hypochondria, and normally sometimes it comes out in people when they've had a traumatic experience with a family member, for example, a family member dying of cancer or anything like that. I was very blessed. I grew up and I had all my grandparents, all my parents. What I think it was, my nana is like that, my mom is like that. So I think it was passed on to me in that way. But what I can say, first of all, I finally went to therapy for it. I mean, I studied psychology, so I was always beating myself up. So you have the irrational thought, and then there's my rational side saying, you're so stupid. Why? It's everything is psychological, but you can't fight it. Sometimes you can't fight it. So I finally went to therapy about it and for it, and I really improved a lot. The last few months have been the best few months of my life in terms of my anxiety. I've learned coping mechanisms. And not everything works for everyone, but I've learned a few coping mechanisms, and so I'm feeling much better. But something else that changed was, so recently, unfortunately, I lost my nana as well, and she was diagnosed with cancer, and I lost her. And my dad.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and my dad had a stroke, and when I went through those situations, what I think I realized was, it's not as catastrophic as I made it out to be in my brain, and I'm stronger than I thought I would be, I think. I think that's what I realized. And I think that helped as well.
That's a beautiful silver lining to a very sad story. And I'm sorry about your nana, and I do hope that your father is well, and I hope that he stays well. But I want to bring it back, very sensitively bring it back to the time that you mentioned before, that you were really throwing yourself into your Instagram and your social media. And the reason I want to do that is because I think this influences so many people in our society today. I grew up before there was even websites, let alone social media. So I didn't have that as part of my childhood, as part of my teens and my 20s. This was all coming around, way when I was into an adult life. So coming back to anxiety and coming back to how much you'd poured yourself into making Shelley's Indoor Jungle a success, do you feel like your immersion into Shelley's Indoor Jungle fed your anxiety, or did it relieve your anxiety? Because we talked about dopamine, we talked about whether or not there was a correlation between the hypochondria, COVID, and being involved in Shelley's Indoor Jungle. But from an anxiety point of view, did it take the anxiety away, or did it just make it worse?
When I was creating content and thinking about creating content, I think it kept my mind busy. That's fine.
So it couldn't open the box?
No, it couldn't open the box. But when I would get anxious because a post didn't get as many likes as I thought or things like that, I think then the lines get a bit blurred. And because you're already strung up, I think then it's a bit easier for something to trigger you. So I think it does affect your hypochondria if you're already strung up and stressed about something else. That's kind of how.
Let's bring it back to you as an influencer. You are, and you're taking a journey outside of just plants, which is really exciting. You're taking a journey into Camino and food and what you wear to work and these sorts of things, which I think is very exciting. I'm going to ask you in a second about your mission for the future. But before we get there, you have 167,000 followers. We won't miss those 2,000 followers out. That's my whole social media engagement just gone out the window.
That's fine.
But I always assume that all engagement with followers is positive. Are all your followers positive?
No, but I would think they're more positive than most people's are. I do get the sometimes you have to be very careful about what you post on social media, be it, I don't know, be it about food, be it about religion. I try to be as politically correct as possible, but you still won't hit everyone. And people, there's this thing about social media which is so fascinating to me. People will try to find the littlest thing to make a comment on, to take them, to pretend that they're taking the moral high ground, which is really weird to me. Like, once I posted a photo of a plant and I said, these are the signs that you may have pests on your plant, for example. And someone posted and they were like, you have no idea what anxiety you're causing people, making them look at their plants and think that they're dying. And I'm like, I'm just trying to be informative. Like, stop trying to make this thing something that it isn't. So you do find those kind of, keyboard warriors. What do you call them?
Keyboard warriors, yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Which they make no sense. Like,
well,
clearly they're just trying to put you down and look like they're superior to you. That being said, if I do post something that is misinformed, or I am very careful about that, but if I do post something that's misinformed or anything like that, I will definitely take on that feedback. And sometimes you do get good feedback as well. So I don't know, but I try to be very careful. When there was the whole Black Lives Matter thing, I felt like I had to post. But I actually spoke to one of my followers who forms part of the Black community, and I asked her to help me write the post because I don't have that perspective. So I wanted to make sure that what I'm saying is correct and right and relevant, not just, your generic white person trying to pretend that they're,
And jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
There's quite often people on social media jump on the hashtag that is popular.
Exactly. I mean, if you don't, you're called out for it as well. It's like So, but I try to to be as informed as possible.
It would be very difficult, having met you, to see how you would be able to offend anybody, or how your plants would be able to offend anybody. And that's why I asked, because I know that with 167,000 followers, there's going to be somebody who has a rant about something.
And you get the random dick pics, and you get the
oh wow, that's
nice. You get
nice.
the horrible comments sometimes, and ugly and all this, and you just learn to brush it off. You still get that, but overall, I have such a positive community. I feel very lucky in that.
Now, you took this onto a website, and you've taken this into a commercial entity. One of the things I do love about your social media feed, about your Instagram feed, is that rarely will you see something that is selling. You do this very, very subtly, if you do, or you'll keep it to your stories. But you do also have the website that I mean, this must be an entity of its own. You really do have your hands full.
Yes.
What is the mission for the future?
In fact, whilst I have the website, and it was something fun, and again me inventing things to keep myself occupied. Definitely, I mean, my mission. I wouldn't say the website is my mission, or selling pots is my mission. I think what I want to focus on right now is, I have a very big platform. What can I do to make a positive impact with it? Right now, that's what I'm trying to focus on, because I don't know. I think that's what will make me feel a bit more fulfilled. Really,
still revolving around Miranda and her siblings, I assume.
Yes, still revolving around them. They will always be part of my life. They have to be. I have like 100 plants, I can't just upend. But they're like a fraction of my life. I have a lot more to give, I think. That being said, I'm trying to figure out the ways of how to link, how plants have helped me with my mental health. They really have. And there are a lot of studies that show that having plants or being surrounded by nature boosts your mental health. And it's just lovely, just waking up in the morning, seeing all the new leaves. Right now, spring, it's great. Repotting plants, touching the soil. It's fantastic. So,
Shelley of Shelley's Indoor Jungle. It has been absolutely fantastic to meet you. It's been fantastic to hear about your mission and hear about you as a person as well, and also your grounded perspective as somebody who has a platform of 167,000 followers. Thank you so much for being on Mpowered.
Thank you very much for having me. It was an honor.